Lawyers of Reddit, what is the most outrageous case someone has asked you to take? I worked on a custody dispute between a mother and grandmother, where both sides were absolutely outraged by the other's claims. The mother was very upset that she was alleged to have been a stripper. I was a prostitute, but I was never a stripper. The grandmother in return, was furious that she was alleged to have 21 cats in her 2-bedroom apartment. We only have 17 cats. How dare she flat out lie and say that we have 21 cats? The child ended up living with the father in a different state. A year out of law school, I once had a potential client who wanted me to sue Canada. Apparently he could not get into the country due to his felony record. I tried to reason with him that it was up to the sovereign nation to set its own rules regarding entry to the country, but he insisted that we could make a lot of money suing Canada. I didn't take the case, but I told him I might be able to get him a letter that said "Sorry from Canada, added its to its." I dictated this on my phone as I was getting coffee. Thank God for the grammar people on Reddit for saving me from this catastrophic mistake in life. Family law attorney here. I just had a custody case go back to court over eyeglasses. My client didn't like the glasses her ex bought the kid. So stupid. I want to go back to criminal defense. Gang homicide cases had nicer people to deal with in family law. I'm not a lawyer, but as a child I was taken into foster care and then returned to my father's custody, so he had custody of me from ages 4 to 16. When I was 22 he tried to sue me for the costs involved in caring for me for that time, saying that he had no obligation to take custody of me and had only done so to save me from foster care. It was obviously dismissed and I don't talk to him anymore. I had a potential client come in and say that he wanted to sue his uncle for murder. Setting aside the fact that you can't sue someone for murder, I asked him who did his uncle murder. He replied me. I turned the case down. While working at a plaintiff's employment firm, 2 memorable consults came in. One guy gets fired for being late too much, wants to sue for discrimination because he has a sugar addiction and needs to stop at 7 to 11 for a big gulp before his shift begins. As a result, he usually ends up missing the bus. 2. A woman comes in. She was a bus driver and was terminated during her probationary period. She had 3 accidents in 6 weeks. She wants to sue for discrimination because she has anxiety and a therapy rabbit, all the while sitting at the conference room table petting the therapy bunny. A woman called saying that she had a product liability suit involving animal crackers she gave to her daughter. I was thinking it was going to be something to do with food poisoning and keep listening. She explained that when she looked at the crackers, it looked like the monkey was holding its penis. It was a banana. This woman was mortified and ashamed. She said she told all her coworkers and they were very shocked and uncomfortable. I wanted to tell her she was nuts and that they were probably freaked out because you were talking about animal cracker DKS. Not a lawyer, but my uncle once had a client trying to sue Sears for distributing pornography to minors because he caught his 12-year-old son masturbating to the lingerie section. There's a lot of them. I've been asked to evict a ghost. I actually did that one. I regularly get phone calls promising to make me a millionaire if I'll sue the police. There's the completely guilty sex offender sitting in jail who wanted me to handle his appeal under circumstances that would have resulted in him being released, then immediately charged and convicted of a more serious crime. So many. Lawyer in a small town here. I mostly do estate planning, probate, old people stuff, etc. I have a client that sued his ex-wife for not selling the house after the divorce as she was supposed to. Judge held her in contempt, and asked what he wanted my client to do, and he had her thrown in jail. They are both nearly 80 years old. The client also has something valuable buried on his property for his grandchildren after he dies. I have a sealed letter in my desk that he pays me a goodly sum each month to hold and give to his grandson when the old man dies. A prospective client once called me to ask if I did personal injury cases because she felt a fall coming on. A woman had cut off her husband's hand maliciously and was facing time and a divorce. She wanted me to help her sue the knife manufacturer for damages. Walking to work at the moment. I could probably let you know a few more if you are interested. Source: work in law firm in Cleveland, Ohio. I remember a guy called me and wanted to take action against the post office. He had received a letter from them saying that they would no longer deliver packages to him as he was never appropriately dressed when he opened the door to accept them. I remember being nervous about asking him to elaborate. Years ago, I had someone ask me, informally, whether he should sue the Jerry Springer Show because they turned his family down as guests. Yeah, out of there real quick. My parents are both attorneys. Most recently, their batshit crazy neighbor asked my dad to serve as his attorney in a slip-and-fall suit. Against my parents. He had come over unannounced and uninvited at 6 a.m. on a snowy morning and fell down our driveway. My dad was the one who helped him up and called the ambulance on his behalf. The next day, Crazy neighbor dropped off legal documents in my parents' mailbox for my dad to look over to see if he had a case against my dad. And this is why I hate people. Someone just asked me to modify their child support because they lost their job. The kid is 17 years, 11 months old. Get the FK out of my office. Criminal defense social worker at a legal aid organization. I had a client who ran 3 red lights on a very busy street, knocked over a police officer, drove up on the sidewalk, forcing people to jump out of the way, and was finally dragged out of his car in a parking lot. He wanted us to refer him to a civil attorney to sue the city because an officer was too rough with him during his arrest. I mean, I get it. They were probably rough with him. Police brutality in my city is real. But good luck with that lawsuit. Well, one client asked me to prove that dinosaurs didn't exist. Tried to sue a history book or something. Another customer wanted to sue Lucasfilms for killing his favorite character in the movies, Han Solo. Standard preface of, not a lawyer but I know someone. I met somebody who went to law school and was still friends with a lawyer for a group that wanted to hunt endangered animals. They paid the lawyer to look for ways to legally do it and to protect them if anybody brought a lawsuit to them. Well, not me. But my father is a lawyer. And a man wanted to hire him so he could defend his son on the trial after the mentioned son killed his mother. My father couldn't take it. I mean, he had worked some pretty fucked up cases with gang members and drug dealers, but I guess this one was too low even for him. Had a case where a man refused to pay rent because his apartment smelled terrible and was making him sick. His landlord tried to evict him. A few days after taking the case and before his first hearing, the ceiling in his bathroom collapsed. Turns out some plumbing wasn't connected and his ceiling/walls had been filling with poop for weeks/months. The landlord settled pretty quickly after that. Not a lawyer but a family friend is. She had someone come to her asking to sue Starbucks because someone spilled their latte or smoothie or whatever on the sidewalk and she slipped on it and hit her head. She claimed Starbucks was at fault because it wouldn't have happened if Starbucks didn't put extra slippery whipped cream in the drink. My brother, fresh out of law school, was asked to defend the fraternity being sued for defecating in the dorm room of the pledge who did not finish his bid to be a brother. He called the co-defendants and the plaintiff the poopers and the poopay respectively in our group text. My dad had to defend Nintendo against a Japanese magician who claimed that the Pokémon characters Abra and Kadabra infringed upon his likeness. Detective here, not a lawyer, but once had a man want me to charge his wife's lover with sexual assault because she was mentally coerced into having an affair. I told him that Jedi mind tricks don't meet elements of the offense. He filed a complaint against me which was unfounded. Not a lawyer but, have a cool story. My grandfather promised my cousin when he was a kid that if he ever needed help in life he would help him. My cousin went to college at University of Virginia and after wanted to go to law school. He didn't have enough money to attend so he sued my grandfather on the basis that my grandfather promised him anything. My grandfather didn't want to go to court so he just settled. It was all very sad and I haven't seen my cousin in over 5 years. A friend of mine worked as a lawyer on what is known in Germany as the Cat King case. Basically A and B convinced C that there is a Cat King about to destroy mankind unless C killed D as a sacrifice to appease the king. First case out of law school, 3-way custody battle between a dad who was in and out of jail on drug charges, mom who was an escort, and grandfather who had a library of child pornography on his phone. Our client, mom, was also paying her lawyer by trading services. Mom ended up winning custody, on the condition she stopped being an escort. Probably will be buried, but I defended a guy accused of rape. His defense was that the girl had been a one-night stand who had become obsessed with him and had broken into his house, found a used condom in the bin that he had ejaculated into and stole it, and had then smeared SN all over herself, punched herself in the face and had thrown herself into a bush on purpose, before going to a hospital. She was doing this to get back at him for not wanting to be with her. I explained that a jury might not believe this but that I would put the case if he wanted to. He was duly convicted. A guy wanted my help to sue Bush, all the lizardmen, and US government for the 9/11. I told him the lizardmen would never lose in court and this case was going nowhere, and asked him to find another lawyer. 1 month later he was found dead with some lizard claws injuries all over his body in his apartment. My father is a criminal lawyer and had a client that wanted to sue the state for being in prison for 8 years waiting for trial. He was found not guilty. That's pretty outrageous if you ask me. I'm sure this will get buried, but I had a wrongful death case when a boyfriend accidentally overdosed his girlfriend on methamphetamine. They were both addicts, and apparently putting some drugs in your ass gets you higher quicker. During the night in question, they decided to put meth on his DK and then he had anal sex with her. She died from that. He'll never forget that. I do firearms law, and this is one that happens about every 3 months, so I have this invention. and I want you to write a legal opinion confirming that it is legal. C. It is designed to protect from lead exposure when you go shooting. Lead is a serious health risk. Does this invention involve a tube that fits on the end of your gun and contains a series of baffles to capture the vented gases? Yes, sir, you have invented the suppressor, which is a prohibited device here in Canada. Only a law student, but this must be one of my favorites of all time. Nix v. Hedden was effectively a massive case in the 1880s for the sole purpose of proving the tomato was actually a vegetable and not a fruit. It originated from the port of New York taxing tomatoes as vegetables. The Nix family, who imported lots of tomatoes, tried to sue to win back all the taxes they'd paid because they thought a tomato was a fruit, as technically it is. Had a woman call wanting to sue DreamWorks because her grandson watched the Bee Movie, thought bees were his friends and ended up with a bunch of bee stings. Had a guy call wanting to sue his ex-girlfriend for pain and suffering. I explained to him that we were a personal injury firm and could not take his case since he was not injured. He countered with a broken heart is an injury. Defended a guy who sent poop through the mail to his ex-GF from state prison. I don't know how it got past prison officials, but it did, and he didn't deny sending it. However, we went to trial because he wanted me to argue that the poop was expressive speech, and thus protected by the First Amendment. We lost. DL, doctor, shit case, we lost. When I was working in small claims for the court system, I had a man call me who wanted to sue his ex-girlfriend for the 12 years of cigarettes he had bought for her. Also had someone accuse the courts of taking and keeping as evidence the blue energy tube the aliens had given her for safekeeping.